Welcome back, everyone, to Pineland's Top 50 Soul-Friendly Board Games, where I am going through my favorite games that I played over the course of the last year. Today, we are in the third and final episode where I will be revealing my top 10 games. Let us begin with our number 10, Welcome to. Welcome to is set during the housing boom, and the idea here is that you are trying to build the best neighborhood based on the cards that are drawn. This is a draw and write game, meaning that you will be drawing cards, and based on the cards that are drawn, you'll be writing onto your score pad a house number, and also maybe taking a special action based on another card that is drawn. This game comes with two solo modes. In one of the solo modes, it's a simple beat your own score system with a bit of a timer attached to it. That's the version that came with the original game when it first published. In late 2020, an updated version of the game was released that also includes a second solo mode. This is a solo mode that was originally released as a standalone product in 2019, but is now integrated into the game. This is known as the Alexis mode, or as the AAA, and in this system, each of the potential solo opponents that you'll be facing has their own little AI rules. What happens is that you'll be drawing three cards. You'll be using one for your house number, one for your special ability for that turn, and give the third card to the AI opponent. And the AI opponent is going to score based on the cards that you give it. So you very often have to choose between optimizing your score and reducing the score of the AI opponent, which gives it a nice, intriguing feel and proves to be a much nicer solo experience than the original solo game. So if you're looking to get Welcome to, make sure you get it as the newer version that has just recently come out. Number 10, Welcome to. Our number 9 game is Warp's Edge. Warp's Edge is designed by Scott Almus and was published in 2020 by Renegade Game Studio. This is a solo only bag builder where you are in a small spaceship that has to face a much larger force. You have to face against several opposing ships plus a mothership. And this game is played in a series of warps. And in each warp, you are trying to go once through your bag. So, thus, each warp is going to be a little bit longer because you are going to have more and more pieces in your bag as you go along. You want to have an optimal bag in the end so that you will be able to face off against all the ships that you're going to be facing and also being able to take out that mothership. This game includes a nice selection of ships that you could employ to face against the enemy, as well as several potential motherships that you can fight. Now, of course, they'll have various different levels of difficulty as you try to understand how best to use your ship, and of course, how you could possibly defeat your foe in the end. But overall, it's a real nice experience trying to puzzle out the best way to survive in Warp's Edge. My number 8 game is another draw and write, and that is Cartographers. Cartographers was designed by Jordi Aden and it was published in 2019 by Thunderworks Games. It is set in the same universe as Role Player, which we talked about earlier. In Cartographers, you are attempting to map out the countryside for your queen. On each turn, you will flip over a card, and this card will both specify a polynomial and also potential terrain types that you could draw within the polynomial. You're then to select which is the best location to place it within your map and try to fulfill whatever the victory goals for the particular play in question. On some turns, though, you won't have terrain types that you're trying to fill in, but instead you're being ambushed by a monster. Now, in multiplayer, when you're ambushed by a monster, you have to hand your sheet to an opponent who's going to draw in the monster at a nice inconvenient place. But in the solo mode, they specify a location where the monster will pop in and then give you a direction to go where you have to try to figure out the first legal position where the monster will come, which is probably going to be someplace nice and inconvenient because you will lose points whenever you have open spaces next to a monster. And those monsters usually have some strange shapes to increase the chance that there's going to be eventually going to be some open spaces nearby. Currently, the game has two different types of maps, Side A and Side B, though there are additional maps that are being released with Cartographers Heroes, which is going to be published in 2021. So my number 8 game is Cartographers. My number 7 is winner of the 2019 Kennerspiel, Wingspan. Wingspan was designed by Elizabeth Hargrave and was published in 2019 by Stone Meyer Games. In this game, you are attempting to build the best bird sanctuary. And in doing so, you're building this in 3 different habitats: in your forests, in the meadows, and also in the wetlands. Now, while you are trying to build the best one, you are trying to meet either bonus goals that you have that are private, and also the end around goals that are public for all players. The base game includes birds from North America, while the first expansion adds birds from Europe, and the second expansion adds birds from Oceania. The illustrations in this game are simply wonderful all the way through, and you even have some nice touches, such as the dice tower that's included being in the shape of a birdhouse to fit everything nice and thematically. For solo players, this game includes a wonderful Ultima that you could have a nice, challenging game against an artificial opponent in there. This all works nice and well and can create a nice challenge. On top of this, this Ultima has proven to be so popular that some players had decided to play cooperatively against the Ultima rather than playing against each other. In fact, this has now been endorsed in the Oceania expansion, where they added cooperative rules for playing against the Ultima. But overall, Wingspan is a nice, wonderful experience, and is a solid one here at number 7. My number 6 game is my top rated Oniverse game, Nyrum. This is the original Oniverse game, designed by Shady Torby and was published in 2010 by Z-Man Games. In this game, you are trying to escape from a dream labyrinth. And in this case, you need to find 8 doors before you run out of cards, which means that you ran out of time. One of the challenges that you're going to be facing along the way will be nightmares, because these nightmares are going to be forcing you to discard some of your cards, and this will, of course, use up the timer that you have, because you need to try to get out as quickly as possible, and those nightmares are going to make that difficult. One warning with this game is that there is a great deal of shuffling. If you hate shuffling cards, then this is not the game for you. Now, if you love shuffling cards, then perhaps this will be a perfect fit. This game also comes with a large variety of small little mini expansions in there. And you can mix and match these as you wish in order to give you some variation to your experience once you find that the base game is a little bit too easy. But overall, it's a real nice game for the solo gamer, Nyrum. My number 5 game is Deep Space D6. This game was designed by Tony Go and was originally published as a print and play, though it was later released as a commercial product by Tau Leader Games. In this game, you are going to be assigning your crew members to the board to various stations on your ship with the idea of helping you to survive against threats. You could have certain dice assigned to your laser positions in order to try to blow up the enemy, or you could try to restore your shields, repair your ship. You have a med bay. You have a commander that could change the values of the dice sometimes depending on what type of ship you're in. All a different variety of things that you could do in trying to survive this assault from the threats that are coming at you. Because you're just trying to survive until that deck runs out. The print and play version of this game includes only one ship, the Halcyon, while the commercial version has 3 additional ships, both for variety and to add some additional challenge that you'll be having to face. Also add a little bit of challenge, the commercial version adds a few more threats that you may be facing along the course of play. Overall, I look forward to my next attempt to survive against the threats in space as I head out in Deep Space D6. My number 4 game is a classic solitaire game, Friday. Friday was designed by Friedemann Fries and was published in 2011. The American edition is published by Rio Grande Games. This is a deck builder game where you are playing Friday and you want to get Robinson Crusoe nice and trained and able to survive so that he can get off of your island quickly. This game is played in 3 different phases. In the first phase, you have the lower level threats. In the second phase, they become more powerful for the yellow level threats. And then finally, you have the red phase, where you have the toughest level that you'll be facing throughout. As this is a deck builder, Robinson's fighting abilities are going to be bad at best, which means you're going to need to train him so that he gets better and better and better so you can get those nice good cards into your deck and get rid of those bad ones out of your deck. Calling is a very, very important factor in this game, and you get an opportunity for doing that whenever you lose a battle. Thus, you want to know when to win your battles and when to lose your battles, and know what to do with your various cards as you come along. And as time progresses, you also have to worry about aging. And as you start to age in there, you have to figure out how to get rid of those aging cards in addition to it. Eventually, though, you are going to be ready to send Robinson against those pirates so that he will be able to take their ship and get off of your island so that you can once again be in a nice, peaceful situation on Friday. My number 3 game is One Deck Dungeon, designed by Chris Ceslik and was published in 2016 by Asmati Games. This is best described as a dice chucking dungeon crawl. That's right, you are trying to head out into a dungeon and go through 3 floors of the dungeon and eventually face the boss there. As you go along there, you try to defeat monsters, overcome perils, and you're trying to convert those into new skills, new potions, new weapons, so that you can be as powerful as possible when you finally reach that boss. This game is played in a series of encounters. And in each of these encounters, you are going to need to roll the dice, and then you're going to have to cover the boxes on the encounter card with these dice. You, of course, need to meet the proper criteria to do this. This means that to put the proper colored die of at least a certain amount onto that particular location. If you cover up everything, Wonderful, you don't have to face any consequences. Most likely, there are going to be a few spots you can't cover up. Well, before you give up completely, check out your skills, because some of those skills might allow you to turn some of those bad dice into good dice so that you could cover up more of the boxes. If you still have boxes that are uncovered at the end of the encounter, though, you're going to suffer the consequences. Now, this consequence could be either to lose time or to lose health. Regardless, if you survive, you can now convert this card into experience, into a new weapon that gives you more dice, into some new skills that allows you to convert those dice that you roll to be improved, or of course, you could even maybe find a potion along the way. And you use these to help to improve yourself so you'll be ready to face the boss at the end of one deck dungeon. My number two game is unusual for the games on this list because I actually like to play both sides of this in a competitive game, and that is Commands and Colors. Commands and Colors is designed by Richard Borg, and it is published by several companies because Commands and Colors is actually a family of games, and there are Commands and Colors games covering just about any era you could think of in warfare. We have from Avalon Hill Battle Cry, which covers the American Civil War. GMT has Commands and Colors Ancients, Napoleonics, Medieval, and they are releasing a revised version of Samurai Battles, which is coming out in early 2021. So they actually have 4 games on their docket. PSC games, they have 2 of them, The Great War, and they also have Red Alert, which is a game of space fleet battle. We have Compass Games, who has Commands and Colors Tricorn, which covers currently the American Revolutionary War as well as the Jacobite Rising. We have Days of Wonder, who publishes Memoir 44, and Fantasy Flight Games, who publishes Battle Lore. And this published overall time beginning in 2000 with the release of Battle Cry, and I'm giving the end date here of 2021, which is when the revised version of Samurai Battles will be released. There is no official solo variant for Commands and Colors, and officially they always rate the solo compatibility as being pretty low. Despite that, there's a pretty good solo following for Commands and Colors games. In all Commands and Colors games, you have the battlefield divided into 3 sectors, and you give your commands to some of your units that are in a particular sector in here. The cards you have and that are available add to the fog of war in that, unlike some war games where you could just command all of your troops at once, however you wish, you always have some limitations here in Commands and Colors. And in fact, that limitation is what allows us to find ways in which to have nice solo versions of the game. But overall, I really love playing all the various forms of Commands and Colors, from the rather easygoing Memoir 44 to the more wargame like ones that are published by GMT. Thus, my number 2 is Commands and Colors. My number 1 game that I played in 2021 is Eon's End. This is a cooperative deck builder designed by Kevin Riley and was originally published in 2016, written by Action Phase Games, and then later on by Indie Boards and Games. These days they emphasize the indie board and games more than the Action Phase games. In this game, you are facing a terrible nemesis who is seeking to destroy your land of Gravehold, and you are playing a breach mage who is attempting to stop this nemesis before he destroys too much in here. While this is a fantasy setting, it is not a standard fantasy setting with elves and dwarves and orcs and the like. Instead, you are facing these terrible monsters that have destroyed the world, and you are the last remnants of humanity who are trying to survive and rebuild. There's a great deal of variety with this game because you have various different breach mages that you can play, and you have various nemesis that you could battle against. And when you start to add expansions, there's an even wider amount of variety. There are 5 base sets for this game. You have Eon's End, which is the original. You have War Eternal, where they add a few more complicated opponents in there. You have Legacy, where you could create your own mage. I'm not too thrilled about that, but I know that some people really like the idea of creating their own breach mage as they're going along in there. We have New Age, where we see what happens after Legacy, and then finally Outcast, which is the most recent release in there. When you have the Legacy game, it naturally added a campaign, a long campaign, and in New Age and in Outcast, you have a shorter campaign known as their Expedition system, which allows you to take your Breach Mages as they're facing a series of opponents. But either way, the game works very well, either facing a one-shot battle against one of the nemesis or going through a short campaign in there. And thus we have my favorite game that I played this year, Eon's End, by Kevin Riley and published by Indie Boards and Games. With that, this concludes my top 50 solo friendly board games that I have played within 2020. These games have helped me to get through what has been a very trying year, and I look forward to next year where I hope to find some new games that I will be able to help to enhance the year that I hope will be much better. With that, whether you prefer solo, competitive, or cooperative games, I wish you all happy gaming.